I suppose that, why did I, and the question you were asking, wanted to ask me was, how did filmmakers come about? Is that was your question? I
Yeah,
think
that
I
was the
should be.
first kind of start before, like you were kind
Yeah,
of saying you were
sure.
you got
Well, the
into.
thing is that, it started because I fell out of school. I mean, having come out of the butts and all that, and being a poor kid, I really wanted to get into the theatre, which was really unusual. And so wanted to do all that. And eventually I got to write a pantomime with another guy called Marty Dwyer, and got a part in that I loved it. And I was doing that and I thought, well, I'll go into the theatre possibly. And I think I'll probably try Dublin and see what happens. But and I was living, of course, on the Dole, an arts grant. And then I was walking up the street, met the priest in charge of the Ferry Hall, because we were working in the Ferry Hall at the time. And he said, would you do a one-act play for me? And I thought, well, okay. And it turned out there was a whole lot of kids. It was actually the altar servers. Didn't know that beforehand. And one of the kids was Brendan Corcoran. So that was his first time. And this was 1964. And that continued because the youngsters wanted to keep doing plays. They'd never really had a chance. They used to watch plays and that. And eventually I went to London to work in an inner city. And again, I was doing some theatre in the Lost Youth Theatre in Fulham, where Ray Fiennes had started, who did Hamlet there.
Mr.
And
Fine,
he moved.
yeah.
Yeah, he moved on into RADA, I think, and I was mistaken for him once. I don't know what. Yeah, I was. Yeah, the guy who ran the theatre, I was over there recently visiting him again. He's quite old now, Cecil, and I was in his house, and I was sitting there, and so he said, "Oh, I'll make you a cup of coffee." And he went into the kitchen, and then he said, "Well, I'm expecting the man from Virgin. There's something wrong with the box or something." And so I was sitting there, I was looking at a book or something, and then this guy came through the door with Virgin written on his chest, and he said, and he just stopped, and he says, "You're him," he said. And I said, well, I could be for money, And he said, no, but you're him. And then Cecil says, it's not him. He said, oh, you're not Ray Fiennes. And no, funny enough, I'm not. So that was my thing. So in London, I was doing a degree then, having dropped out of school at 15. I just walked into a degree in Middlesex University, Polytechnic as it was then. And at the end of my course, I did a film with the young people in Lost, and we won a BBC award. And I thought, oh, this is really good. I think.
What was that called then? What was
It was called Why?
Why?
And it was the local kid was kicked to death outside his school, and it was pretty rough. And that we're talking about 80s now, mid 80s, and they decided to do it. But it was a knifing in the film because it looked more dramatic. And one of the young lads, he went on into Coronation Street eventually. Charlie Condu. He was. Did you watch ever?
Well, my mother, we watched it with my mother when I was younger. I kind of.
Well, he was a kind of a midwife in it in the hospital, and that's Charlie. And Charlie is still working over there, and we're in contact still with some of the lads who were there. But so I thought, well, okay, and what I was thinking about doing was starting, believe it or not, the young London filmmakers.
See, the idea started in London, like, yeah.
Well, why not? I mean, it's London, and I thought this could work. This could work. And then how fate turns things. I got a letter from Steve Murphy. Steve?
Yes, Stephen.
Steve was working in Australia at this time. And he says, would you ever come out and work with inner city kids? Well, street kids, really. And in Bondi. And I thought, yeah, I'm coming, to Bondi. That's what I was in Bondi for. I was working there for nearly 2 years, working with street kids and Maori kids. A tough place, At that time, there was maybe 70,000 kids on the streets of Sydney. And they'd be with us in Bondi one day, and the next thing they'd be up in Cairns or somewhere in the northern thing. Huge country. So I thought, and then I was working with Metro Television there, which was kind of a public television station, and I was working with the young people there, and I thought, well, the young Australian filmmakers would just be as good, wouldn't it? Because the light is lovely.
AFM, right? So yeah.
And I remember, when their winter came in, I was walking around in a shirt, like I am now. And they were saying, are you not freezing? I thought, no, this is spring in Ireland. It's actually a good summer some days, So, but I thought, no, really, all my contacts are in Kilkenny, really. I knew I could put something together in Kilkenny. And so I left after around 2 years and came back in 91. So next year is 30 years of Young Irish Filmmakers, by the way.
30 years now, yeah. Geez.
Just giving you advance warning. And it was hard. It was hard. Nobody wanted to know. I did all the usual meetings, went up to RT, and they basically said, "Feck off." Kids. My own namesake, Mike Kelly, who was the head of production there, said to me, "Look, kids will never make films." And I thought, I really believed they would, and eventually he gave me, I think, $1,000 to go away, and not come back ever.
Jesus
and
Christ.
which was a lot of money in 91. And my first office there was a bench at the Hibernian there opposite the phone box. Anybody remember that?
Yeah, that bench.
Yeah,
yeah
off the parade there. That was my office. And then I went into the Desert Hall. I got a room in the Desert Hall upstairs, and we worked. And then a girl called Mary Hogan, who was doing a degree, took a year off to work with me. And she ended up as a producer with Little Bird, but now she's doing therapy with kids, child play therapy. And so we worked for the year, and then eventually a room became available up in the orphanage. And so we moved in there. That was our first time. Well, we only had one room upstairs. The one right over the office.
The one where the LTI room.
Is that the hub now, or it's not the hub? I don't know. The LTI. No, it was the one where everybody sat around.
Oh yes, that one. Front. Yeah.
That was the room. We couldn't even get into the other rooms. So if anything happened, we had only had the front door to exit.
That's it. You had that one little room, and I know the size of that room. So that was it.
Yeah. We put plays on in there, and eventually, the rest of the place was wrecked, and we got 2 rooms and 3 rooms, and eventually and down below us where our office was, that was a little traveller school for traveller kids. And I used to do a bit of work down there when I wasn't actually working upstairs. And they still say hello to me. They're all men with about 5, 6 kids now. So that's where it started. But we had no money and we had no cameras. I had a still camera. We worked with that. And it was hard. Again, it was back on the door, after thinking, with a degree and all that kind of shit, And so I thought, and it took a long time. In fact, 95 was looking fairly bleak. There was nothing much happening, I thought. And I had considered, my visa was still open for Australia. I was a permanent resident of Australia. I could have gone back. And I thought, won't I? And then we put on a play with about 30 kids. We had a lot of kids then. So we couldn't do films or really properly. And we did this play, a full-length play, devised, no script, anything like that. And I decided to take it back to my old theatre in London. We did it for 3 nights in the London theatre. And it was a big hit in London, and people were saying, "Have you got a script?" And I said, "There's no script, but they're filming it, And it was great to meet up with all the gang again. And I thought, no, I'll stick with this. I think this might just happen. And the year later, I decided, no, what I really need to do is make a big thing, make a splash, and that might just wake everybody up. And I bought the rights for Under the Hawthorn Tree, which was a big selling book at the time. BBC Scotland had it, but the author hated the script. And she said to me, "No, keep the spirit of the script." So I did, and she loved it. So I was going to run with that, and I got a phone call from Channel 4 and says, "Well, we're making that." And I said, "Well, I have the rights. It's like an option. You get it for a year, and you can do anything like for a year." And I said, "Well, would you work with us?" And they said, "Okay, come over and talk to us." So I came over and spoke to them, and they said, "Okay, and who's making it?" And I said, "Kids." And I'm with the board in the schools. This was for schools, and there's about 5 of them around the table in Channel 4. And I thought, what am I doing here? But they said, okay, and they said, "Okay, we will give you half of what you're asking for." I was asking for 100,000, and they gave me 50. But they said, "Have you a script written and all that, so that we would be able to release it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll have it in 10 days." So I wrote a script in 10 days for a feature film.
Yes,
I know, it was absolutely stupid. But as I said to you before we came on, we just make it up as we go along. And boy, was Kelly making it up as he went along. And over 7 weeks, I had to get money then. I got 25,000 from America. I got 15,000 from the European Union. And then I went back to Mike Kelly in RTE, who said, I said, "I need 15,000. And he said, "Feck off. You're never going to get any money for kids' films here. You just don't." And I remember Rod Stoneman, who was the head of the film board at the time, said, "Well, now you have a producer story. RT refuses everybody." So I didn't know what to do really. I kept chasing him, and he was not even opening his door to me this time. And I had a friend who knew the head of SIP2, Des Gerrity. And Des, so I said, can you get me through the door? And I got to Des, and I said to Des, you're a board member of the RT, aren't you? You're on the board. And he says, yeah. And he said, okay, look, I have English money, American money, European money, and I can't get any Irish money. It's all an Irish story with Irish kids, with Irish, the whole thing is Irish. And he said, that's fucking awful. He said, big Dublin accent, lovely man. Within 2 weeks, I had the 15,000.
And you had it then. It was a good way to say it, like it's an Irish story.
He wouldn't even come into let me into the office. He sent his secretary out with the check. And they had 2 showings of the filming, and he showed it once. You know, and somebody said to me, well, that's somebody not to work with again. I said, yeah, I'm going back again if I have to, you know. So that's our start. That created everything then.